This conference will now be recorded.
And it's 5 o'clock, so we'll start. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. We will go ahead and discuss the formal agenda at the beginning. Review the agenda this evening. Any comments, questions about the agenda? Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, sir. I have no additions to the agenda per se. I would remind my colleagues, I'm going to be asking for your support, your agreement on a letter of support for the next phase of Professor Shine Mass Plywood Panel project. So it's not on the agenda, but it has to be done by Friday. It has to be done by Friday, colleagues. So that's coming soon. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Thompson, if I might, that letter, we actually finalized the letter earlier today, so.
Well done, thank you.
It was emailed out.
I can talk on the phone or I can email, but I can't do both at the same time. Thank you kindly.
No, thank you for the question, Commissioner Thompson, and thank you for the clarification, County Manager. Any other comments, questions about the agenda? It's a rather voluminous agenda this evening. We got a lot on there, so we'll have a busy night. Okay, not seeing any more comments or questions or raised hands. We'll go ahead and move on to County Manager report. Don.
Thank you, Chair Cuello, members of the board. We added the County Manager's report to the agenda, so if you don't see it on the work session, sorry about that. We just had a couple of items that we'd like to touch base on. One is the NOHA appointment, so it's the county appointments to the North Coast Housing Authority board, or Northwest Oregon Housing Authority Board. And the county has 3 positions that are selected by the board. And I don't see Commissioner Webb right now. So I'll give kind of an overview, but by the NOHA bylaws, we have 3 positions. One is currently vacant. So the county worked with the NOHA executive director to advertise for this vacancy. It's for, I believe it's for a 3-year term, if I'm not mistaken. And actually it's a 4-year term. And so, and these folks serve on the NOHA board and provide policy input to the executive director and the NOHA executive staff. So, so these on the screen are the applicants that we have received to date. Our goal is to have an appointment made by the January 26th meeting, so that whoever is appointed can participate in the February NOHA meeting. So. But I thought I'd turn it over to Commissioner Webb. Sorry, Commissioner Webb, I'm having you take over, if you don't mind, just talking about the applicants and the board appointment process.
Okay, thank you. We have, I think as I've been reporting from the NOAA board, we've had a lot of challenges in the last couple of years. And I think that the greatest of those has been the financial performance of the organization. And we certainly wanted, there are, I don't know, Don, stop me if you already explained this, but for each of the 3 counties that are members of NOAA, the counties select 3 representatives to serve on the NOAA board. Presently, and one of those representatives should always be a county commissioner. Presently, I am the county commissioner assigned to NOAA, and the second member is a resident of one of NOAA's properties within Clatsop County. And she's kind of a double representative because she represents Clatsop County, but she also speaks on behalf of our residents in our various properties. We had a recent resignation from Mel Jasmine, who has been a beloved and wonderful and active member of NOHA for a number of years. So now it is time to replace that position. And I think we were very, very fortunate to get tremendous applicants for this position. All of them, I think, were qualified people. But my recommendation is that we appoint David Ozer, who is a former officer at Craft 3, which, if any of you don't know what that is, that's a sort of a nonprofit lender. And so David has great experience in developing properties and doing pro formas and understanding complicated financing aspects of building a lot of nonprofit entities. He has applied for the position, and I would like to recommend that we appoint him. Any questions anybody has, or?
I would just kind of recommend David as well. I've known David since working on the chamber board with him, Chamber of Commerce board, served with him on there. Really appreciate his input to that group, and I do think he would be an excellent representative from the on the NOAA board. But any other comment, question? We do have a number of applicants here. Commissioner Thompson?
Mr. Chair, thank you. And that's my consideration. I don't know everybody on this list. I know some of the people. I have no reason to doubt your and Commissioner Webb's judgment on this. But I wonder when we're looking as commissioners at our board rules, maybe we want to contemplate together and set some kinds of protocol or procedures so that when we're looking at applicants for various appointments, we have a more or less standard procedure, because I'd like very much to listen to people. I know that there's a paper application and then there's interactions with people. So I'm happy to accept your recommendation, the recommendation of the two of you in this case, but I'd like us as a board to put on our to-do list looking at a standardized procedure so that we're more closely working to hear from people and not just read applications. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments from the rest of the commission?
So Chair Coelho, members of the board, we will prepare an agenda item for the 26th to memorialize this appointment. And at that same time, we will reaffirm the other two appointments just to make sure that NOHA has everything that they need. So
I think we got a little bit of feedback. If everybody could mute your mics if you're not speaking. Thank you.
The second topic, real quick, Chair, is we did receive a request from Steve Fick. As you recall, last year your board sent a letter to the ODF&W Commission regarding Columbia River fishing regulations for commercial fisheries, and we've received a second request from Mr. Fick to have your board support a second letter. I had sent it out Friday as a draft from Mr. Fick, and just wanted to let you know that, and if your board is so inclined, we can take that draft, massage it a little bit, put it on county letterhead for your review. But I did want to introduce it as a topic tonight. And I don't know if Chair Cuellar has anything to add, but.
Yeah, I think it's important that we send this. I think we've been ignored by ODFW, and I think it's very similar to Department of Forestry in a lot of cases that we've got to assert ourselves because we're often kind of overlooked. So I think it's important sending this letter. I know that they're in a time crunch. They would like to see it sooner rather than later. I did have a call from Steve today that he'd like to have it by the end of the week. So, but yeah, I think it makes sense to go forward and send this.
So I see some nodding heads. What I will do, commissioners, is I will massage the draft Steve provided. I'll send it to your board for your review, and then you can just get back to me individually. And if there's any edits, comments, suggestions, we can work through that process. It is a continuation of the letter that was sent back in, I think it was June or July, if I'm not mistaken. So
I see Commissioner Toyoka had a hand up. Commissioner Toyoka.
There we go. Thank you. No, obviously, and I'm supportive of sending a second letter, especially since there was no answer to the first letter. I think as the county, as we send these out to different agencies, we should at least get a response, so we can report back to constituents. Not receiving any, acknowledgement is, unacceptable. So I think we need to be persistent, and we need that recognition, acknowledgement that the letters out there, that there is an issue, and then you can't start working towards a solution if they don't recognize there is an issue.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Toyoka.
and just so you know, I think that we'll share this with PacWest also, so they are aware of the issue. And that's all that I have for the county manager update, Commissioner.
Okay, great. Thank you, County Manager. Go ahead and roll into our topics here. We've got Phil, Paul, I think I saw Ryan as well there from PacWest. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and start with the Clatsop County's legislative priorities and upcoming process line item here.
So, Chair Cuellar, if I might go first, and then I'll turn it over to the
Yes,
PacWest.
absolutely. Absolutely.
For the last couple of years, we've been working hard to really navigate our legislative presence down in Salem, and it's really an effort to augment what AOC is doing for Clatsop County and really all counties. But there are some singular issues that are just higher on our priority level or are singular in terms of their interface with Clatsop County or the North Coast counties or rural counties. And so, we started the engagement with PacWest last year. We engaged them really close to the legislative session, and so we didn't have the time to really do some of the strategic planning and fold them into the strategic planning process that your board is currently working on Friday. And so we wanted to have the PacWest team come and talk about what is on the horizon with the legislative session, the calendar, as well as interface with some of your board's priorities that came out of the last strategic plan. I did want to make reference that we have drafted a draft legislative agenda or guide that has some of the overarching principles that really guide most local jurisdictions regarding legislators, meaning like oppose unfunded mandates and some of those real, traditional county concerns. But it also tries to then interweave a lot of the strategic planning elements There are certain things that we believe are a particular priority for the county, such as, how the TLT taxes are actually statutorily required to be distributed. We have concerns regarding mental health funding formulas, and then of course the ongoing just concern of adequately funding some of these essential human services that all counties need. So if you could, board, take a look at the legislative guide as you have time, and if you could give staff feedback, we'll share that with PacWest also. And this just gives us a sense of, as we see all these bills coming through, it's just a filter. So I'm going to pass it on over to, I believe, Paul, you're going to lead it today. Paul and the rest of the PacWest team. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate being with you all. I want to share with you a couple of observations. We have a PowerPoint put together. It is our general desire to give you or any client a couple weeks head notice when we provide materials. But this has been a very odd sequence. If we would have tried 2 weeks ago to provide you a material, the stuff that we're going to talk about today probably wouldn't be known, but for the session starts on February 1, and we're in the legislative days now, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. As you may recall, I served 5 years in the governor's office and 14 years in the legislature, and have been lobbying a long time. I went back and I can find no time in that period of time from 1977 forward where we've had a legislative session start like this. All 4 political offices, the leader of the House, both Republican and Democrat, have changed. The Senate Republican leader has changed, and the Senate President, Peter Courtney, who's been there for 20 years, who interestingly enough ran originally as somebody that supported term limits, has announced he is going to retire. That has caused, people are saying that's new. Others are saying it's disorganized. I could blame it on COVID, but it's more than that. It is these legislative leadership things that set in motion everybody trying to become the new leader, new committee chairs, new things like that. So this will settle down before February 1, we're hoping, and we will try and get you information in real time. We tried to get you as much as we could immediately today so that to support Don's effort on the strategic planning session that you've got on Friday. I know as elected officials and leadership staff, you want to know and work off of what's really going on in today's world, especially since what happens in this short session will dictate how well we do in the 2023 long session and deal with some of the major issues that are out there. Some that AOC will take the lead on but need support, some that really affect just rural counties. So as we start, you're going to hear a lot in the next, well, between now and the first week in March about how the progressive agenda coming out of Portland and those legislators has really screwed up the session. That's only one part of it. The real part of it is how they're starting up with this legislative process and things of that nature. Now, as we go through the timelines and that, please keep in mind a couple of things. We actually won't see the legislative filing deadlines. Maybe Phil, if you can go to the first slide in the presentation, if you have the ability to do that. That slide will run through some of the timelines.
I think I
There you go, Phil. But as you're doing that, I'll give you an outline, Don and commissioners. Really, as you look at this, Friday legislative bills will be finalized. That's the deadline. They then become trickling out next week. We will work with Don and Monica and Amanda to make sure on the agendas that you developed, here are the bills. And as you finalize your strategic plan, we're really going to work to focus in on those particular bills. So Don and his team is armed up with what's going on. But I must say, Commissioner, if you wanted us, PAC West, to talk to Kurt Melcher, the director of ODF&W, those are the things we can do for you. Kurt and I happen to have been friends for a long time. Doesn't guarantee you anything other than I can get it to his attention and at least get you the courtesy of a response so that you know what's going on out there. So if these things pop up outside the agenda that and the bills that come up, please feel free to use us. Phil, are you able to get us up and share the screen or not?
It looks like you might be having difficulty. I was told that, Paul, you were going to share the screen, but I did send it to Phil.
Okay, I'm an old guy that doesn't know this technology as well as I probably should. So sorry about that.
Are you able to share now?
I did just get a notice that said I was able to share. I clicked it and it kicked me out, but it went away. I'm not able to share a screen yet. So
I see
Okay.
Commissioner Webb, you had your hand up. Commissioner Webb, did you have something?
Yes, I'm finding the visualization at this meeting very unsatisfactory. I can't see anybody. There are a bunch of blocks of with two letters in them, etc. Is there a way that we could give a little bit more of a preference to the people who are presenting, and that could we move the folks who are listening in off screen? Otherwise, I mean, I
Commissioner
can't.
Webb, you have the capability to do that on the top, but you should be able to just view active cameras.
Is there an icon that says that, or?
It's in the middle at the top.
It says,
Phil, did you get the invite now?
I have not yet. No, nothing's popped up.
Commissioner, do you see the view
Thank you.
everyone on the top? If you
It's
click
right-
on that,
There
Got
you
it.
go.
Yeah, it worked. It works pretty good.
thank you. Thank you, that's great.
Teresa, if you want
Phil's
to
having
see, you can
difficulty.
make me the presenter.
I got it now. It just came through.
okay. There's and it is my goal that for the next several meetings and certainly with staff, we will get you and Don and his team updated a little more timely. I apologize for the lateness of this, but unfortunately, it's the legislative process. We are on legislative days right now. Friday, they submit legislation. The concepts get bill numbers, and then next week, I will say it's trickling out. It comes out. It can be a fire hose where they all dump out at the same time. Our goal will be to go through all of those, particularly the pyramidal process that Don has described, so that we really focus on, here are the ones that we can help you and you have set as priorities in your strategic plan. We're not going to ignore some of the other ones. We'll give you that, but we want to focus on what your direction via Don and his team is to us. Session starts on the 1st. It is our desire, and every lobbyist desire, that leadership battles, and particularly in the House, will be settled by then. If not, it will slow things down. The February session, just so you get in your minds, is really a budget session that's supposed to set up the work for the 2023 session. That's why they have these very tight deadlines of the first week of February 7th. If you don't get a bill moving, it's dead. Therefore, we then can advise you as commissioners, but more particularly Don and his staff, as to here's what's really in play. Then we have the chamber first real deadline is the 14th. The second real deadline is February 8th. But before that is the revenue forecast. And I bring that up because a lot of the bills that particularly the House Democrats are talking about are big spending items. And that will drive what happens on the 14th and the 18th. And then finally, the second chamber of deadline is the 24th of February. That tells you that between basically February 24th and March 7th, they're going to target to wrap things up. And with the deadline for candidate filing on, I believe, Tuesday the 8th, they generally get it done by then because they want to get cleared out of the House so you can come in and get all the falderall with that process. But that's what you're going to see. And so to the extent we can, we're going to be working with Amanda and Don and Monica to make sure in real time they get the updates. But some things are going to move pretty quickly, and we'll do our best to get those to you as fast as we can. The next slide I'll touch on, and then I'll turn it over to Brian. I think it's important to note that there are 8 new members of the legislature since it adjourned just not that long ago. And now we've got 20 members that have announced they're not running again. Now they may be running for another office. I touched on the speaker's resignation and other legislative things, but it's also important to note that the executive staff has seen some pretty good turnover. And of course, we've got a host of 1,000 running for governor now, including your senator, who's also running as an independent and also has stepped down. So there's a lot of churn going on in the process. But I think, Don, given the time, if it's okay with you, we'll kind of jump into the legislative stuff if that works for you. Okay.
I just want to mention one thing about the significance of the speaker resigning before session. So she resigns effective on the 21st. Leadership elections are to take place on the 23rd. If no action is taken, that means the speaker pro tem, it becomes the speaker. So right now you have a fight between, which is Representative Paul Holvey, who's been the pro tem for 3 sessions. And he would ascend in that position if nobody can get a majority vote out of the caucus. Right now, the fight for who's going to become potentially the next full-fledged speaker to take the helm for session is between Janelle Bynum and Dan Rayfield. We understand that more leadership positions may be opened as well, like majority leader, and we're here that the heir apparent to that position may be Julie Fahey from the Eugene area. So this is important and more noteworthy than just a rank and file member leaving the legislature, because the speaker really sets the table for the way everything moves through the process. They determine what committees will exist or not exist, what the names and subject matter of those will be, who will serve at the helm of those committees, which means agenda setting priorities or power, including what is the balance of power on the committee? Is it an even number committee? Is it a simple majority or a super majority? So everything is going to hinge on who is selected for that and what changes need to be made. My understanding is that the sentiment broadly amongst the Democratic caucus is to not make big changes to the committee structure as we see, because so many people have sort of built their work plans and agendas already and put them in place. But there will, no matter who it is, you know, every one of the people in consideration chairs at least one committee. There will be a cascading effect. If Dan Rayfield gets it, there will be an opening at co-chair of Ways and Means, which is a very significant role. And if that's filled by somebody else who may hold another position, you know, it just continues to cascade down the line that can cause some pretty significant changes when you consider that not all Democrats have these same priorities and same relationships. And so I just wanted to put a fine point on that before we move to the next slide. Can we go to the triangle slide? Thank you. So this is something that we talked about and sort of worked up as a visual display with Don. And you know, there's sort of this triangle. This is what you're seeing in a lot of what we have in the coming slides so far are just what's happening in the world that fits within the categorical areas that you care about, what other people are doing to you, basically. And there's a lot of that going on right now. And so we have the next one is just sort of what the coalition partners like AOC are doing that we may want to support and offer, backup, give them logos and things like that to help put wind in their sails to get some.
It's not electrical.
If
Sorry.
you're not presenting, can I have you mute yourself, please?
And then the top of the triangle and the top of the pyramid is, I think, why you hired PacWest. It's the proactive things that aren't being done. Don mentioned a little bit at the beginning, the things that focus on North Coast, on rural areas, on Clatsop specific issues, capital requests that you may have, things like that. That's why the strategic planning process that you guys have planned for Friday is so important, because that's going to be what gives us that proactive sort of agenda that where we can look to actually engage and give you a return on your investment in us. Until we have that set of priorities and proactive steps that need to be taken, we really are looking at what other people are doing and being reactionary to that. Don, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that as well. As the triangle was actually your initial brainchild, so.
So this is one of those back of the napkin moments, really, where we're trying to help visualize the various players that are coming together to really represent the county's interest. And PacWest focus, besides giving us information, since they're down boots on the ground in Salem on a number of topics, it is really to help us deal with those high priority areas, those big impact areas that inevitably come during any legislative session. Oftentimes those are defensive, but what we hope to do is to get to the point where there are some offensive ideas that we would like to actually pursue down in Salem also, and that is part of the integration with the strategic plan. Then, of course, we want to recognize AOC and our other partners that are all advocating for their interests as well. And those are happening every day, and they're not always requiring a lot of PacWest time investment. So we just wanted to kind of show that there is allocation of resources based upon what type of priority and what type of issue that we're dealing with. So it really just shows that this is a team approach. So there's a lot of different elements happening at the same time. Thank you, Brian.
Bill, I think we're ready to move to the next slide.
Absolutely. So in these next slides, we are structuring, this is kind of twofold purpose of these next few slides. One is you'll see on the left-hand column, draft county objectives. Now, these are going to change based off of your Friday meetings and whatever comes from your strategic plan. These are summary notes that we have we've worked with or we've received from the county, from staff, just to put some context there so you could see what our plan in reporting back to you might look like. And I think at one point somebody had asked the question, well, what is the reporting back to the county going to look like? Well, it's going to be twofold. One is we can currently already send out a legislative newsletter, and that usually tends to come at the end of the week. You should see one again this Friday that kind of capulates all of legislative days. But what we're going to try to do is, as you do your strategic planning in specific subject areas, this slide specifically is infrastructure. There's a few others that will follow. We are going to restructure that newsletter to be under those topics so that it's something you're familiar with that can easily be paired up with your strategic plan document that comes out. And then as we come back to you in these meetings, it's a standard regular template that you're used to seeing. So on the left-hand side, as I said, there could be draft county objectives where you have a tier or I don't know if we want to say priority based, but we have tier 1, tier 2. And then on the right, we're going to say, hey, this is the updates as it relates to that top triangle of the pyramid where you have us focused. There could be other things going on in the bottom two sections, but you have asked us, you know, as Ryan said and Paul said, you want that ROI on your investment. So we're going to stick that up, stick those updates into that section there. So for instance, under infrastructure, what we were hearing in legislative days this week, as of today, we still have another day coming tomorrow. I pair it up to the right-hand side, the updates on each of those areas. So under communications, there has been no conversation in these last couple of days about something that could affect that top objective for you, that top tier. There was conversations about broadband, but it was more administration within the agencies. They approved some funding and FTEs, but that might mean once we're in legislative session that might fill in by the next time we report back to you. But I also told, oh, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, I see Commissioner Thompson had a question about the broadband.
Yes.
I actually do. I'm looking at thank you, Mr. Chair. Phil, sorry to interrupt you. Legislative Concept 236, the broadband omnibus proposal.
Yes.
We passed it out of the AOC Transportation and Community Development Steering Committee, but I've heard since then we have grave concerns because the rural advocate on the OBAC has been eliminated in this. I'm very concerned about that, and so are other commissioners in rural Oregon about that part of Legislative Concept 236. So to the extent that we can make sure that there is an advocate for rural broadband, I think there's a huge need for that. Thank you.
Well, and actually that pulls up a really points out a really good point. If it's okay to pause for a second. So I'm going to go back to that previous slide. That is extremely helpful information. So as Ryan and Paul and I have been talking, you know, that's probably definitely a topic that AOC is taking on because it affects all counties together. But if that is something that comes from your strategic plan that you want us to engage in, yes, we want AOC out there fighting for it, but we want a Clatsop County face to this moving forward. We want it in both that top triangle and that middle triangle. That is helpful information to know. If it was just in the middle, you could see I did not put any information in there because that's more of the partners taking the lead there. But if out of Friday's information, if that pops up there, Commissioner, you will see us tracking that and putting that on the right hand of updates for you. But that goes to another question of what you might expect us to be asking from the county. That first and foremost, that strategic planning document or any talking points from it or tiers would be helpful because you will see that left-hand side be changed to reflect those bullet points. So perfect. Okay. So just going through on infrastructure, I'm going to breeze through these a little bit because everybody can have this. We also have it emailed, and we're welcome to any emails with additional questions. But tide gates and levees, there was no specific proposals that came. You folks know that during the last full session that they passed the funding for that. I don't see any proposals in any committees. There's still committees that are scheduled for tomorrow that they might a subject like that might pop up on, but they have not even posted meeting materials in those committees online yet. So if I see it tomorrow, I will be getting that email out and it will be included on that Friday update. But just as of today, I think I stopped checking OLIS probably 1 o'clock today. So if it was posted after that or tomorrow, I apologize, it wasn't included there. But we don't expect anything coming back to strip funding from that. There was no opposition on that on the front end in the first place. So the other topic there that I want to note is the mental health crisis stabilization. So we do know that Joint Ways and Means is going to be having a robust conversation about this. When we get into session, they are going to have a large budget reconciliation bill that is going to cover all agencies. Today, we saw that OHA requested a 10% increase to behavioral health providers in their reimbursement. And during that committee conversation, the chair of the Ways and Means Health and Human Services, which that's an important person who's asking these questions, they made an unofficial motion to have that come back in February with a 20%, not just 10%. So that might change. That is a significant increase as it relates to the budget. But I wanted to note that because, again, if this stays within the county's objectives, you will see us tracking that and making sure you're aware of it. Now, this might, again, be one of those issues that pops up in the county's public health association, where they're coordinating with other public health offices across the state and other counties. But for now, I wanted to make sure you saw this in the template form. And then again, the other option we had there, or the not other option, the other tier 2 priority we had there was the tsunami overlay zone. And this is one I need to do research on. I don't want to say that there's not information coming forward on it, but I know that this subject's being tackled by multiple agencies, and I want to make sure I get that I understand where the wires are going. The Department of Land and Conservation is working on some items and updating everything to make sure that it has equity-based lenses in it. And I do know I've seen a couple emails come through with tsunami overlay included in it. So I will be doing research, and in our next update, you should see things populated under that bullet point. So are there any questions on infrastructure before I pop to the next one? Okay.
Is this format useful to you? Is that because we're kind of running this through,
Yes.
You guys are going to be the ones that drive the process, not us.
Yes.
That's nodding affirmatively.
Yeah.
That's great.
Perfect. Okay. And again, this might be the condensed version. The newsletters, again, will have the same topics, but much more expanded. This is more of that public facing, knowing that we are here in a commission meeting where there's a lot of other agenda items. So,
and on that point, you should probably move. Yeah, there you go.
That's what I was going to say. So the next few are going to be pretty quick. Economic development. We had here that the only one was an economic development study and strategic development. So there was nothing presented in the House Economic and Prosperity Committee specifically toward this subject, but I did note here that if the commissioners, if you want on Friday to talk about that, there are opportunities to ask for direct funding allocations to help fund that type of action. So I noted it there, but other than that, there was no discussion about this type of studies or these type of studies in committees this week. Same thing with environmental quality, sticking to the 2 issues on the side. There was no conversations, and they might be more internal. So that might change again as you guys talk on Friday. But so the environmental quality action team, that might be something you guys are just doing internally. But I did search just in case that popped up in DEQ somewhere. There was nothing, but they also don't have their hearing until tomorrow as well. So that might change. And then this is the last topic.
Bill,
yes.
Before you go, I would almost guarantee
Commissioner Webb had a question.
Yes, Commissioner.
Webb.
Yeah, I have a comment. You asked about whether this was useful. It is, but in our strategic plan, we have tried to be quite specific about things on the ground here. Our environmental action team was something that we didn't anticipate, going anywhere else for. But I would hope that at least these words would stimulate for you the fact that that at the moment we are, I hope you're aware that we're in the midst of redoing our comprehensive plan.
Right.
And we lack good information about environmental issues in the county. As many spots outside of the valley, we just don't get the study in terms of water quality and flow things. We're really at the mercy of a lot of other state organizations that provide us the data that we need. So if you could kind of, I don't know, County Manager, if you have thoughts about this, but if, and it's a little late now with the session virtually almost underway. But it's the larger issues. We want to make sure that Dogami, for instance, that's an issue that is very critical to us. There was some discussion in the last session about merging Dogami into another agency. Those are the kinds of issues that we really care about. So I don't know whether maybe this takes a little bit more communication on our part to help you understand the background of what some of our strategic plans are.
Well-
I would say the same thing is true in terms of economic development. There are many factors for us. For instance, the ODF and W letter that we just talked about, that pertains to economic development in Clatsop County. So that's kind of the background. So as I say, I think most of us would be more than happy to talk to you a little bit more about the things that we're particularly looking for at the state to feed into our strategic planning efforts. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner, as I was going to say, and I really appreciate those comments, because tomorrow is the hearing that on the environmental stuff, it might be brought up. So we can fill in then. Not only that, the reason I mentioned the legislative council process of these bill filings, I am absolutely will guarantee you some Dogami issues and some other environmental EQC issues will be in there, but nobody knows about them except for the individual legislators that are having them drafted up now. They're just not public information. Friday being that deadline, we should get that trickle or fire hose, it could be either way, starting probably Tuesday, maybe Monday, running through all of next week. And then you're going to see these issues brought forward so that you can appreciate what's going on those, because we know they're part of, Don shared that with us. We know they're there. We know they're going to come up. They're just not public yet. The old transparency process, the Oregon legislature used to be one of the most transparent processes around. Right now, it's anything but transparent. And we're probably, as a lobby group, better positioned than most are. Many of the lobbyists are really frustrated and complaining about it. The complaining is not going to do any good. It's going to come out when it comes out.
I see that County Manager.
Chair Quayla, members of the board, I just wanted to point to the the draft legislative guide that is also in your materials. That is where we want to really land some of those details that will help PacWest also fill out how they're going to report back. And again, that will be informed too by Friday's strategic plan conversation. So I see us still in that iterative phase. And so all this feedback is really helpful. And I think if we look at the legislative guide to make sure that we're capturing all of your board's priorities and the nuances of those priorities, that would help Paul and the PacWest team. So thank you, Commissioner.
And commissioners and Don, I guess I would just suggest too, as you're thinking about that, I was just thinking of the comments that you were just saying, Commissioner, about this specific tier 1 item of the action team. While that might be very internal, as you were saying, it's very helpful for us to know that, because I could see easily a tier 3 of PacWest, please just keep an eye on this, because I think what we did in that, or what was done on that levy bill, was there was funding allocated, and that could easily all have been eaten up by Portland levy projects. But there was a caveat or a budget note put in there that said a specific portion of those funds must be spent outside of the Portland metro area. While, that doesn't solve all of the problems, just knowing what you said, Commissioner, about a lot of those funds and studies being not done in our area out there in the county, it's good for us to keep eyes on that as we go through budget processes too, so that we could see if a budget note is needed for DEQ is always getting funding to do studies. Maybe they need to be told or have a budget note that says that has to be outside of the Portland metro area as well at a certain percentage. So that's very helpful. So. And I said this was the last one. There's actually 2. Social services this is one where you had identified as homeless incentives / actions. This was where a lot of the conversation was today. I noted some LCs that were discussed that definitely have an impact on local government. And I guess I need to pause. I can go through them and give a quick description, or I can put that in email and get it out to you. Whatever's
Phil,
works.
I see that Commissioner Thompson has a question first, Phil.
Sorry.
Commissioner Thompson.
I was hoping, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping you'd bring up LC 218. I was in a committee meeting and realized finally, oh, it's section 1 of that tells Clatsop County what we need to put into an application in order to qualify. That started out as city county projects, $1 million a pop for 5 city county consortia. They expanded it to 8 because there were 8 that I'm told that were able to respond, but we didn't get included in that. And we have arguably the worst homeless rate in the state. How can you help us get the money we need by doing what we need to do in a timely fashion? So this LC 218 section 1, I would think would be critical in that regard. Help us, please.
There's a couple of things that to keep in mind, and Phil, I'll turn it back to you in a second. There's an incredible bias in state government and among certain elected officials that the homeless problem is a Portland problem. That, in fact, is not true. In fact, statistically, it is absolutely untrue. So we have actually, for a variety of rural interests, been able to kind of drive that point home. Many of the funding mechanisms that were talked about in the full session, where they were saying we're going to go ahead with these grants and these funding, come to find out that some of these programs weren't ready. So a lot of them are being revisited. That's where we can put the place mark in. Now, people often talk about the progressive agenda as a negative. Part of the progressive agenda where they want to spend a lot of money now, this short session, even though it's supposed to be a budget session, is on homeless issues. So Commissioner, that is one that we can actually watch, try and position, get the county, because Don has made a major point of this, saying this is something we as a county want to address. So that's how we're trying to get it leveraged in there. Phil, sorry if I stole your thunder there.
No, you're absolutely correct, Paul. And in fact, I'm just going to add to it a little bit. Yes, and I actually have seen the 8 groups that they identified as those pilot projects, and there's some where you can tell they were just picked out of the air because some of them just don't even mesh together. So ideally, what we would do is literally visit with those budget writers, because this will be a policy bill, but it will eventually have to be referred to Ways and Means as well. The good news about that is it won't be subject to those heavy timelines that start in week 1 because it will be a Ways and Means bill. But the bad news is you have to fight to get into it. And so ideally, we already have a meeting with both party budget chairs. We are going to be visiting with Representative Rayfield here soon. I have a meeting with Representative Greg Smith as well. We're going to also be talking about what funds are they going to try to use this for. If this is going to be a use of ARPA funds again, then I think the state's really trying to use those before the deadline. That's an easier pitch than trying to go after general fund. So that in our meetings, we're going to be trying to harvest those answers for you. And that will allow us to position a little bit better going in. But go ahead, Commissioner. Sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you both. I'm co-chair of the AOC County Solutions Advisory Committee. We had the idea that in regard to housing, since the urban areas got $14 million appropriation, not a budget bill, not a just $14 million for the cities in December of 2021, we should ask for, I don't know, 10 or $14 million for the counties in a similar kind of appropriation bill. That hasn't gone through the whole AOC committee process because we're only advisory and we're new and all that kind of thing. So it hasn't gone through the legislative policy committee analog system. But if you can help us think about how do we get money like the city's money, because it was no strings money. Here, take this money, do what you need to do in your area. We need that in rural Oregon too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Just one thing, we got about 5 minutes left, so I'll turn it back over to you, Phil, just knowing that we're short timed here.
Well, and commissioners, I apologize if I'm missing people with their hands up. When I'm sharing, I can only see 3 or 4 of the boxes on the side, so I'm not trying to be rude by any means. And then the other thing I should just note there, Commissioner, is this bill does have a lot of strings attached to this funding, so that would be something we'd have to talk about too. So the other concepts there that are updates I have under there is like today they passed, or yesterday they passed $40 million of ARPA funds that will be in the budget reconciliation bill. That is going to be to recapitalize the homeowner assistance fund. While that isn't technically current homeless incentives, it is, they did have a robust report about how that has been able to prevent additional homeless problems in some areas. It was definitely statewide in their reporting. So I just wanted to allow you to know that there will be additional funding there if you know folks locally that are going to be accessing that. And then I will send an email, Commissioner, summarizing those other 3 LCs so that you have that, and I'm not taking the rest of the meeting doing that. And then the last slide we do have here is the legislative one. And I say that because that was just the topic. We have all those other ones, but this was just designated as legislative. The transit lodging tax distribution, we have talked with the revenue committee members. There's a lot of discussion from both sides about this topic, but as of yesterday, there is no plans to have a bill, or there has not been a agreed upon plan to move a bill forward in the short session. We did get conversations mentioned, or we did have conversations mentioned to us that there is an appetite for a potential work group after the February session and the next full session to kind of dive into that conversation. But that is, again, that's back of the napkin between the chairs, individual members, and what Ryan had said on the front end of this meeting, where once we have a new speaker in place, you could see committee assignments change. Revenue was one of those committees where the membership of the committee drives a lot of what can die in the committee and what does not die. And so so that topic as of right now doesn't have a vehicle to move forward, but there is discussions about potential work groups in the interim. The human services funding side of things and any funding formula changes that disadvantage rural communities. I just noted here that there is a lot of funding going out the door for these services. That's no surprise to you folks, no surprise to us. But what is interesting is they're continuing to drive from the executive branch level this new funding through CBOs, and that's community-based organizations. And we just felt as a firm that you should, if there's an opportunity there, there's a lot of goodwill within some of the legislators making these decisions on their view of county public health offices. And so that might be an avenue for us to talk about. We don't want to have the fight against CBOs, but maybe these proposals should say the funding's available for CBOs and public health offices. And so I just threw that out there as a potential a lens to view some of these proposals through. Currently, that is not in the proposals, but that will be part of the budget reconciliation bill coming forward on the beginning of session as well. And then finally, what we had here as a priority, RV resident safety, with a focus on building codes. There is no concepts. We've looked through the committees that this would fall under. There is no committee bills being introduced that would tackle this. There is a concept that another sister county, Deschutes County, is having with folks where they're talking about trying to expand the emergency homeless bill from the 2021 session, I believe it was House Bill 2006, to cover camps and RV facilities. So that might be a vehicle for us to look at moving forward. But as of today, there's no proposals being made, and there might be something coming after the February or January deadline on the 14th, but we will have to update you more on that. So, and that should, I just wanted to pause there. That should be everything I have on the specific topics. And unless Paul or Ryan, you had anything to add?
You got a question, Phil?
I think Commissioner Toyoka has a question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair Quila. I just had a question on the RE resident safety. You know, from everything I can read, we're talking about the safety of the individuals in the recreational vehicles. I can't find anything about the safety of the residents of the community where these vehicles are being parked and clustered. You know, we have examples here in Clatsop County where the local residents, you know, are living in unsafe areas because of clusters of RVs, you know, from raw sewage into our storm drains to, you know, needles and paraphernalia to kids go outside because it's not safe. So is there another conversation about the safety of the local residents as well? Thank you.
Well, the easy answer is Commissioner, no. There has been a focus strictly on the RV side of it, but the political winds are blowing mostly from neighborhood associations, frankly, mostly from the Portland metro area that are tired of these RVs really being abandoned after they're being used. So that discussion is back on the agenda. Several people tried to bring it up during the last long session and were really kind of shot down. So, but it's back on the agenda and with a much more positive viewpoint at this point.
Thank you, because I would argue that, I've read some of the transcripts that, they talk about, the compassion towards homeless, which I understand, but I don't believe it's compassion when you're giving away someone else's property, rights, and safety for someone else. I think there's got to be a different approach. Thank you.
Commissioner Bangs has a question. We are up against 6 o'clock, so we'll turn it over to Commissioner Bangs and then we'll adjourn.
I just wanted to clarify and see if I heard you right. RV abandonment and disposal is potentially one of the topics.
That has been, it started out, as I understand, more of an RV safety issue for people who were using these for more long-term housing. And now it's been, the issue previously was brought up, and it's being brought up again about the impact on where they're being parked and lived in, where their waste is being discarded, where they're being abandoned. So it's been, Commissioner, kind of broadened out in the discussion.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And we are out of time for the work session. I want to thank the PacWest team. Thank you for, I like this format. I think this is a good one, and we'll be checking in regularly with you and appreciate the opportunity to provide you input when we see issues coming our way. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate working with Don and his team.
Thanks again. And if we're all ready, can we roll right into the regular session? Okay.
Commissioner, could we have a 2-minute break?
Absolutely. We'll take a 2-minute break and we'll reconvene.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for the mercy. It's a guy thing. No breaks needed. Have compassion for your female colleagues. Just saying.
Okay. Lesson learned. Okay, I think we got our board back. I think we're ready to begin the regular meeting. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, roll call.
Chair Kuya,
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson,
I'm here.
Commissioner Toyoka,
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Commissioner Banks.
Here.
During the work session, we had an opportunity to review the agenda. Are there any questions? Are we able to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Vice Chair Thompson would move to approve the amended agenda, sir.
Second.
Move and second to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. First item is the designation of the chair and vice chair. We'll go ahead and then start with the chair. We'll take nominations. Commissioner Toyoka.
Well, I would like to make a motion to retain Commissioner Mark Quila as chair and Commissioner Leanne Thompson as vice chair for the next session.
I second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and there's been a motion to retain Mark Wheel as chair and Commissioner Thompson as vice chair. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And just thank you very much to my fellow commissioners. I think we've worked very well together this year. I just appreciate the confidence that you have in both myself and Vice Chair Thompson. And I'm looking forward to working with you in 2022. We'll move on to the proclamation. This is the Mental Illness Awareness Month proclamation on page 8. And we have Amy Baker with Clatsop Behavioral Health, Executive Director, who's with us, and I'll turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate your allowing me to join you this evening. As you all know, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Mental wellness is a very integral part of our overall well-being. And if anything, the pandemic has shown us how fragile and yet resilient we are. Mental well-being is contextual, and it requires individual and community commitment to recognize and protect its importance. So I want to thank you, Chair Quila, for reading the Mental Wellness Proclamation tonight.
Thank you very much, Director Baker.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the resolution and order proclaiming January 2022 to be Mental Health Wellness Month and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation.
I would second.
It's moved and seconded to declare January Mental Health Awareness Month and to read the proclamation. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. The Board of Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon, in the matter of proclaiming the period from January 1st, 2022 through January 2022 to be Mental Wellness Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Americans face challenges in life that can impact their mental health, and whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health and conditions, and whereas there are practical tools that all people can use to improve their mental health and increase resiliency, and whereas with effective treatment, individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives, and whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim January 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2022 as Mental Wellness Month in Clatsop County, and invites all community members to join in this month of observance by raising awareness and practicing acts of self-care that promote well-being and increase resiliency. Dated this 12th day of January 2022, the Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon. Thank you very much, Amy, for being here. We'll move on to the next item, which is business from the public. So this is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes, there are.
If you have registered to speak, please wait until your name is called, then give your name and address for the record. You will have 2 minutes to speak, and we will be having some public comment on item 18. So if you're wanting to comment on item 18, please wait until we reach that item on the agenda. Teresa?
Yes, the first speaker is Charles Dice.
Charles, can you name and address for the record?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Charles Dice. I live at 31911 Clatsop Lane in Cove Beach, and I'm here today to ask the Board of Commissioners to listen to and acknowledge the many comments that have been submitted to the county over the past 2 years from the residents of Cove Beach in protest to short-term rentals in Cove Beach and in the coastal residential zone. Our neighborhood has submitted over 30 letters or emails to the county over this period detailing the harm experienced with these for-profit commercial business mini hotels that are destroying our neighborhood, including a letter submitted in January of 2021 signed by over 70 local property owners, many of whom live, work, volunteer, and vote in Clatsop County. We've seen no meaningful response from the county or the Board of Commissioners, nor any acknowledgement of the harm and damage that has occurred to our neighborhood and that continues to occur. We now have over 30% of the homes in our neighborhood that are being used as for-profit commercial businesses, and this will continue to grow based on the large profit margins generated by these mini hotels. The situation in Cove Beach was caused by the county deciding without consultation, discussion, or notice to our community to start issuing short-term rental permits in 2018. This was done in violation of the county's own code and in the coastal residential zoning ordinance, a fact that has been confirmed by written legal opinions from 2 of the most well-known and well-respected land use attorneys in the region, and which was also stated by Clatsop County Planning Department staff to several property owners who bought or built their homes in Cove Beach in the late 90s or early 2000s. This is a problem caused by the county and inflicted on our neighborhood by the county. The disruption and harm caused by short-term rentals to residential neighborhoods is neither new nor unique to our neighborhood. It's been and is a growing concern and problem for many residential communities and neighborhoods throughout Oregon. We are asking the Board of Commissioners to acknowledge the concerns of the citizens in Cove Beach who have and are asking the county for these same proven solutions to the problems created by short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods, and to implement the same ordinances that have already been legally adopted by Astoria, Warrenton, Gerhart, and Lincoln County. You were elected to represent the needs and concerns of the citizens of Clatsop County, and we ask and expect you to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. Teresa?
Cameron LaFollette.
Cameron?
Yes, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'm Cameron LaFollette. I'm the Executive Director of Oregon Coast Alliance. And I just wanted to speak briefly about the same problem that Mr. Dice mentioned, the short-term rentals. We have been participating in the process that's ongoing through the Planning Department under Gail Hendrickson's leadership. And I noticed that in that process so far, fairly marginal, minor tweaks to the ordinances have been proposed. But in order to really deal with the fundamental unraveling of neighborhoods that a preponderance of STRs causes, really some deeper work is going to need to be done. This has been done in other places. It would be preferable and less disruptive to county ordinances and to county governance if decisions about some kind of cap or removing the right to, or the possibility of having an STR in residential zones were to be accomplished administratively via the process that's ongoing now with the county, through the county planning department, rather than having to file lawsuits or pass a ballot measure as was recently done in Lincoln County. And we would urge the county commission to give serious consideration to the ongoing process that's taking place via the planning department to see if the imbalance of STRs in residential areas can be rectified without having to take more drastic and disruptive steps. This is a problem all along the coast. I know many coastal communities now that are holding workshops on and doing research on the problem of STRs in residential zones. So be assured that you are not alone in dealing with this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Teresa.
Andrea Kennett.
Hi, I'm Andrea Kennett. I am a staff assistant with Clatsop County and a steward with AFSCME Local 2746. My address is 91677 Smith Lake Road in Warrenton. I have a petition. I believe you folks may already have a copy of it dated today. It's to the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners. We, the undersigned, are the staff assistants of Clatsop County. We do the critical frontline work that keeps our county running in our district attorney's office, sheriff's office, public health, clerk and elections, assessment and taxation, building and grounds, and public works departments. We care about the work we do and take seriously the service we provide to our community. Unfortunately, our work has for years been misunderstood and misclassified by the county. The county's unnecessarily long and drawn out process for updating our job descriptions is flawed and inaccurate and has caused incredible stress and disruption to our work. Recently, the county went so far as to take back a proposal that would have increased all of our wages because they failed to do the due diligence of checking their own work. Now the wage increases many of us were planning our lives around have been taken back. This is simply unethical. We are united in our advocacy for each other and the services we provide to our community, and it is signed by 23 staff assistants. I also have some remarks from myself as a 20-plus year county employee, if I may. The jobs that staff assistants do have become more technical and specialized and are no longer clerical. We agree the current system of a single staff assistant job description doesn't work. One size fits nobody. But management's latest proposal doesn't work either. Instead of focusing on the differences in duties, responsibilities, and required skills, the consultant acknowledged she was focusing on commonalities in order to clump positions together. I have a better idea. Rather than generic job descriptions for administrative or program assistants, as they're going to be called, at level 1, 2, or 3, let's look at each current staff assistant and write up a job description that fits that position, at least by department. That would make it easier for management when hiring. Our job performance evaluations are based on our job descriptions. If they're inadequate, that hurts us in our evaluations. The information used to develop the current proposal is flawed. The positions picked from other counties do not have the same duties and appear to have been chosen for lower pay. Outdated wage scales were used in at least one case. Our people poured heart and soul into this project, participating in interviews, drafting job descriptions, providing comparables, and all that input was ignored. Throughout the past year, we have seen several job descriptions, each different from the previous ones. The expectation of pay increases was created by management. A proposal developed last spring by a different consultant gave everyone raises up to 10%. The proposal in November from the HR director gave everyone a 5% pay increase. Based on that proposal, we submitted a request to bargain. The HR director was pulled off the project, and we received a new proposal last week that keeps all but 4 or 5 people at their current pay. That smacks of regressive bargaining. But the worst part is that it creates a new lower level that is paid less. As experienced employees leave, they'll be replaced with employees at lower pay but expected to do the same work.
Andrea, I'm going to have to interrupt. If you could wrap it up, I have other speakers also.
Yes, I will. The county used to have a model that was posted in every department and on the website, neighbor to neighbor, serving Clatsop County with integrity, honesty, and respect. That's all we're asking for, integrity, honesty, and respect. After all, we are your neighbors, your constituents, voters, and taxpayers. And thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Jeff Davis.
Good evening. This is Denise Davis. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Sure.
Great. Jeff and I live at 79432 Ray Brown Road in Cove Beach. Our neighborhood is located in what should be a protected coastal residential or CR zone and is being threatened by the alarming growth of short-term rental commercial enterprises. So we're here again asking you, our county's Board of Commissioners, to restrict short-term rentals in Clatsop County CR zones. We don't understand why our previous entreaties are being ignored by the representatives who were elected to safeguard the interests of your constituents, the county's residents, not the interests of non-resident investors who want to make money off of selling nightly stays in our neighborhood. You've already heard numerous times from us and from many of our resident neighbors regarding the following points and several others: that allowing in a CR zone short-term rentals, which are commercial activities, violates the county's CR zoning ordinance; that short-term rentals are a detriment to the community with regard to safety and health, for the latter notably water and septic sanitation; that Clatsop County's own report on affordable housing in Clatsop County, dated January 2019, concludes that short-term rentals have a negative impact on the availability of affordable housing; and that several jurisdictions in Clatsop County, Astoria, Warrenton, Gerhart, Cannon Beach, to name a few, as well as in neighboring counties, have recognized the deleterious nature of short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods and have taken responsible measures to restrict these business enterprises. Still, we have not heard back from you in any significant way regarding the above concerns that so many of your constituents, those who call Cove Beach their primary residence, have presented to you. We can only surmise that outside money is driving your decision-making. We ask that you demonstrate in a meaningful way that we're wrong in this assumption about your motives, and do the right thing to promote well-being and increase resiliency by supporting the people who reside in Clatsop County and contribute so positively to the beauty, livability, and health and safety of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Teresa.
Yes, Leslie Smith.
Leslie?
Okay. Joanne Cornelius.
Hello, Joanne.
Hi. Hey, it's really interesting to hear. Joanne Cornelius, 44920 Tide Avenue well, it's actually in Falcon Cove. Its mailing address is Archcape. It's about STRs again, and I was really interested to hear you commissioners having to be aware that some of your issues don't get answered by others. So I think you probably know how we feel down here. I would just like to add to the several others that have talked about this, and we will be again, that I would like to see nicely the commissioners or the planning commissioners held town hall meetings to talk about this issue. But they go into it in the very beginning with 4 off the table issues. And these issues are terribly important to this community, especially because we're different, totally different from the other ends of the counties, the unincorporated areas at the other ends of the county. So it should be treated differently. So those issues that you commissioners, I guess, agreed to, I presume you agreed to, are that there's no no blanket STR prohibition at all. So that's not even to be discussed. The second one is no grandfathering out of those that are already here, which are already a huge percentage. Third one is one ordinance for the whole county. And as I say again, our area is completely different here. We're on septic, we're on slide soil. You ought to see just the recent slides. Maybe Commissioner, our commissioner from here would have noticed, because the end of one of the streets just simply fell down into the creek. About 10 feet of the end of Columbia Street fell down because it's all sitting on clay. And the fourth one you've put on to not even talk about is no limit on the number of times an STR can be rented. So these 4 issues I would really appreciate if the commissioners would put back on the table to discuss in the town halls. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Teresa?
I went back to my email on Leslie Smith, and it said Leslie or Rick Smith. And I do see there's a Rick Smith on. So if you'd like to speak.
Rick, are you on?
Hi, this is Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Trouble muting.
Yeah, you're cutting out, Rick. Yeah, we can't hear you, Rick. Yeah, sorry about that, Rick. We're gonna have to go back.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments?
Not for the business from the public. We have 3 people who want to speak on the appeal.
Okay. I did see we had a letter with regards, or it says, please read into the record at tonight's CCC meeting. Thank you. As an employee with Clatsop County for 20 years, I have been through many changes in the clerk and elections office. I feel the complexity, accountability, decision-making authority, and required knowledge needs to be addressed in the reclassification. We were given new titles by PSU to program technicians. The clerk, the previous job title, staff assistants, no longer describes the job of each position in the clerk and elections office. We have all had to take on more job responsibilities and also cross-train for each position in case of absence. In addition, we all have specific job requirements that need to be met on a daily basis. All I'm asking for is an accurate job description, title, and fair pay as a dedicated employee of Clatsop County. The latest of the many proposals does not accomplish this. And that's from Novita Stetham Norris, 5095 Cedar Street, Astoria, Oregon, 97103. And if we don't have any other public comments,
Hello,
we'll go.
Leslie Smith. Can you hear me?
Yes, Leslie, we can hear you.
Whoa. Okay. I don't have a good track record. I live at 79165 Ray Brown Road in Cove Beach, and I'm disappointed in the county for its lack of transparency regarding the handling of the SDR issues. They are very disruptive in a residential neighborhood. They are not regulated in a way to keep communities safe and healthy. Residents find it hard to ask strangers to move cars or turn down noise, and sometimes that's not safe. There is not a way to contact the STR owners or their management companies. We look to the county for help and hit a wall. No one gives answers to questions asked, so they set up a hotline, but it doesn't handle much. The county receives hotel tax from STRs, but nothing comes back into the community. The county has not answered any questions about ideas or solutions, even though the county has a large amount of information on proven solutions and ideas. Information has been sent to the commissioners on how communities in Clatsop County and in Oregon and in other states. Since we don't hear from the commissioners, it seems like all of the information has been ignored. No discussion about health and septics and water, nothing about noise or traffic. You, Clatsop County, know the facts on STRs, but are unwilling to take on specific problems. And if you're not listening to the residents, you must be listening to the STR owners and management companies. Statements from some of these STR owners would say they are offering a service to those less fortunate to live at the beach. And they're not speaking honestly. If they were, their prices for renting would be much lower. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. If we don't have any other public comment, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have a rather large consent calendar this evening. Has everybody had an opportunity to kind of review? Do we have any questions, any items that we want to discuss further? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Thompson moves to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll
So,
move
Mr. I just want to say this is the part where I want to have one of those little things where the confetti flows out, because we see that the Westport Boat Ramp Road has been incorporated into the county system. I tell you, we consented to that. It's a celebration. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great news. It's a huge accomplishment. I agree. We'll start with you, Commissioner Thompson, Vice Chair, with the liaison report.
Well, AOC has rearranged its schedule so that every policy committee can be attended. Information. When we did the meeting with PAC West today, you could hear some of the points that I was able to raise. I'm looking forward to our strategic planning when we talk about how to share effectively information and coordinate our actions. What I'm seeing is that by attending these AOC meetings, I'm better able to track where the resources, who do we talk to, how do we get a voice and a vote and access to the resources for Clatsop County. So I have lots of agendas, I have lots of packets, I'm happy to share them. that's the biggest news, except to mention that, you know, colleagues, on Friday morning, we'll be selecting a replacement for Senator Betsy Johnson. I've participated in that process as both an elected precinct committee person for Precinct 45 and as a District 5 Clatsop County is also an elected PCP and a county commissioner. So we've been involved from the beginning. I want to praise and acknowledge all of the people who have participated in this process. They are involved, they are passionate, they want to make a difference in their communities, and we'll be making our choice on Friday morning. I'll tell you, I was moved to write an email to Leah Horner, because she's now going to be there's a fancy title, she's the chief mucky muck in charge of this ARPA money. I sent her an email and said that I hoped how we proceeded was that we would have shared values, shared objectives, and honorable strategies going forward. I also hope that we would do fearless reality testing about what works and what doesn't work. And by fearless, I mean no blaming, no shaming, no demonizing. We are really committed to seeing what works in our communities and telling each other the truth about that in order to make the most effective use of these ARPA dollars. I would also hope that those same shared values, shared objectives, and honorable strategies, coupled with that fearless reality testing, characterize our election of Senator Johnson's replacement on Friday morning. Thank you, sir.
I completely agree, Commissioner Thompson. 9:30 on Friday. All the candidates will be available virtually for questions, and I've had the opportunity to talk with all of the nominees, and I've also reached out to some members of the community. Spoke with Chair Davis from the Democratic Central Committee. So I think it will be a good opportunity for all of us to ask some questions on Friday and get a full picture of who we want to be sitting in that chair. I think it's very important for that person to be able to hit the ground running, as we just heard from Pac West, that it's going to be a short session and you got to be able to get right into business as soon as you are appointed. But I'll go ahead and stop talking and turn it over to Commissioner Toyoka.
Thank you.
He wasn't ready.
Let me pass for a minute. I'm having the coughing. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to both Chair and Vice Chair for your service last year and your continued service moving forward. Commissioner Thompson, you have been irreplaceable as a liaison between the AOC and us. Your presence there and your information that you share with all of us is invaluable. And Commissioner Kawila, thank you so much for all of your health, the work that you've done with the health department and through the hospital throughout this pandemic. And now as we enter an endemic, I'm continually appreciative of the team that we've created. Now looking at my liaison reports, I attended a lovely Fair Board meeting and I was very impressed with the turnout that arrived in order to discuss uses of the arena there. And I was glad to see clubs and groups advocating for themselves in the use of the grounds. And I was very impressed with how our Fair Board members handled the situation with grace and wide open ears. And I am glad to report that moving forward, I see a good relationship being created between the horse groups that are interested in open rides and the fairgrounds moving forward. Other than that, I haven't had any other, meetings of great import for liaison reports. But so far, it's been a semi-quiet new year. So thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. Thank you all for your support earlier for our next designee to represent us on the Housing Authority. We desperately need this position filled, and so I appreciate your fast action. A little bit of a snippet learned in the Clatsop County Advisory Committee to the CCO, which we talked about their programs last week. But a little snippet of information that I found very encouraging. We had a presentation this week from a woman by the name of Joelle Archibald, who is with the Oregon Health Authority. She, in a wonderful presentation about the waivers that are being negotiated between OHA and the federal government. As I'm sure most of you know, that actually most of our health dollars originate with the federal government. And so the way we administer those agencies has been a long process of helping the federal government during different administrations understand the health system that we have in Oregon, and sometimes it takes tweaking some of the federal rules. One of the really very negative part of that rulemaking has been that with the Oregon Health Plan, which Oregon, which I always thought was an Oregon program, but of course it had been negotiated with the federal government because so many of our healthcare dollars come through them. And the something that has been a craw in our clause, especially locally, has been that we haven't been able to cover our jail inmates with the Oregon Health Plan. And that is a particularly difficult thing as we prepare those folks for release, because as we work with them to smooth out their release so that they don't come back to the jail. And as you noticed in our consent agenda tonight, there's a whole discussion about that role from parole and probation. But it looks as if in the negotiations with the federal government that OHA is going to get a waiver for their prohibition of the OHP plan being acceptable to be implemented in our jails and for our inmates, which is just huge. That's really a great thing. And so that's good news that is probably coming. On the workforce front, we continue to see dollars coming into the region, and we are, remember, one of 5 counties in this region, so it's several different labor markets. But we are seeing increasing federal dollars coming into apprenticeship programs, which are implemented throughout our region, and also for services for unemployed people. So we were very concerned, because certainly in my long history with workforce development, usually as the unemployment rate drops, federal funding for workforce development also drops and escalates when the employment rate goes up. That hasn't happened through the ARPA dollars, and through this last congressional session that didn't happen. And we're very, very relieved about that, because we do have issues of labor force participation here. A lot of outreach that has to happen, very typical of rural areas. So the good news is we're still working with robust funds that we hope to use for retraining and reentry into the labor market. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Webb. And I think Commissioner Toyoka says he's going to pass on comments. I'm going to pass on comments as well. I think we have a number of things on the agenda, and county manager is going to address some of them. And I know our emergency manager is on as well to talk about something as well. So, county manager.
Yes, Chair Quayle, members of the board. We do have an off-docket item that was added at the last minute regarding an emergency order. And so Tiffany Brown will be here to go over that. But I just wanted everybody to know that there was a late addition to the agenda. I also wanted to note that Friday at 2 o'clock, we'll be having a work session for strategic planning, as well as to talk about another comp plan goal. So Gail will be joining us also. And then there'll be a joint planning commission meeting with the Board of Commissioners next week on the 19th, and that'll be at 10 o'clock a.m. So going to be another busy week. I did want to mention real quickly in response to the comments from our AFSCME union is that, you know, we value all of our employees and we couldn't do the work that we do. You know, part of the challenge always is to make sure that the processes that we use to really manage equitably and fairly all the class and compensation needs of an organization. We work hard to make sure that they're relevant and they're maintained and they're easily understood. And I think we know that there is some work to do in this area, and we certainly recognize AFSCME's concerns, and we hear, you know, how they feel about this issue. And so I just want to validate and to let them know that we do hear that. And that's something we will continually work with them. There's always a challenge when you're interfaced with process and people. And so we will continually navigate that in the best way that we can and really honor everybody. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. I think we'll move on then on the agenda to our public hearings. The first public hearing this evening is on Ordinance 21-05, revisions to subdivision and partition regulations and road construction standards. This is the second reading on this ordinance. It's on page 145. And I will turn it over to Gail Henriksen, our Community Development Director, to give the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ordinance 2105 addresses our subdivision and partition regulations, and the intent is to really bring them up to date, to update some of the citations that are included, the references to ORS, and to also incorporate industry standards and best management practices. As part of that, the road construction standards are being revised as well, and in some cases that would increase the road width that someone subdividing or partitioning their property may need to construct. We held a first public hearing on this ordinance on December 8th. During that hearing, the Public Works staff did recommend one addition to section 3.9860, and the board did discuss that at their December 8th meeting. We have incorporated that change into the ordinance that's in front of you this evening. And when we did have our first hearing, we did not have any members of the public speak for or against this ordinance. At this point, though, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of our Community Development Director at this time? If no questions, then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
No, there are not.
Okay. If there's no one registered to speak, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there any discussion by the members of the commission? If none, then we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board adopt ordinance 21-05 and conduct the second reading of the ordinance by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the board adopt ordinance number 21-05 and conduct the second reading of the ordinance by title only. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. County Council, may we have the second reading by title only?
An ordinance amending sections 1.0500, 2.9000, and 3.9500 to 3.9800 of the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Code.
Thank you, County Council. Next item is another public hearing. Solid Waste Franchise Ordinance number 21-06. This would be the first reading on page 147. And I will go ahead and turn it over to our county manager for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Quayla, members of the board. I think Joanna, are you doing the staff report or did you want to? I'm happy to share. So.
Chair and members of the board, tonight in front of you, you have the solid waste franchise ordinance. As we've talked about in previous work sessions, Clatsop County does not currently have a solid waste collection franchise. Under state law, the county is responsible for planning for solid waste management. And in fact, the state has given the county some material recovery, recycling goals under statute. This solid waste franchise ordinance is a vehicle for the county to influence our solid waste and recycling services available to the unincorporated areas and the rates that are charged by the current providers. Currently, Recology provides services to roughly 4,000 customers in unincorporated Clatsop County, and Waste Management serves about 215 customers located primarily in LC Jewell and Fishhawk Lake areas. This proposed ordinance establishes that all haulers providing those solid waste collection services must obtain a franchise from the county. The franchise would be valid for about 10 years, well, 10 years exactly, and renewable by mutual agreement of the county and the franchisees. The county manager's office would provide the administrative oversight and recommend the rate adjustments for approval by your board. You will note that the proposed ordinance does not have service level requirements. Those, in fact, will be included in a future solid waste and recycling administrative rules, which will be submitted to your board for approval. Staff has engaged both of our providers, and I see them here on this go-to meeting, about the solid waste franchise. We did receive comments from Recology yesterday. Staff has not had a chance to analyze those comments, so we're not providing them for your consideration and the recommended changes at this moment, but we will take some time and analyze them and talk them over with Recology so we can understand some of the comments and bring those back to you for your consideration. Waste Management did not have any further comments. I think we all recognize that a lot of the detail about the service levels will be done during that discussion about the solid waste administrative roles and future rate adoption. With that, the franchise ordinance also proposes a 5% franchise fee on the gross receipts, which we have a conservative estimate of $90,000 per year. These funds would be available for the franchise administration, public education, and other expenses related to the administration of the franchise. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We are asking your board to conduct the first reading of Ordinance 2106.
Any questions for County Council? If we don't have any, we'll go, Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I just, this is a process question. This is a first reading of an ordinance, correct? And yet did I understand correctly that the details that you said were left uncertain at the moment will be taken care of in a resolution, in the resolutions which will implement this ordinance? Am I
Yeah.
understanding that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Commissioner Webb, you do have that correctly.
Okay.
And that's really intended to make it the resolution more responsive, a resolution you can pass by, obviously taking it in front of the board, but an ordinance is something that requires 2 readings and takes some time to implement. So this system, which is, I think, somewhat unusual, but not that unusual because there are several counties within Oregon who follow this same type of ordinance and then rules adopted by resolution. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for County Council? If not, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
No, there are not.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I know Dave Larmuth from Recology is on. Did you have any comments? I know that you had submitted comments.
Thank you, Chair Cole. We're looking forward to working through the process. Your council has been gracious so far in working with our legal team. We had some folks who were out over the holidays, so there were some delays in getting you back the comments. We look forward to the process, and we hopefully can continue to provide the residents with good service that they deserve.
Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion? Members of the commission, staff? Commissioner Thompson, do you have one?
Just grateful. Just thank you, Recology. Thank you, Waste Management. You know what? We'd be in a real mess without you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Banks.
I just have one comment to Dave. I absolutely love your office behind you. Major props on that lightsaber weapon wall you've got going on. I'm sorry. I just had to take a moment and appreciate that.
Well, thanks. I made it myself. They're actually made from guitar hangers. So it's been a long pandemic. I should mention also that Dean Camphor from Waste Management is also here if you had any questions for him.
Dean, would you like to make any comment or ask any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. No specific comments. We just look forward to working through the process, and this is not an uncommon process for a county or a city to have. Actually, it's most common that all cities and counties in Oregon have solid waste rules and regulations and ordinances. So we look forward to working through the process with you and your staff. The staff has been great to work with, as well as Don Boone, the manager.
Great. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate those comments. If we don't have any other discussion, do we have a motion?
So, Mr. Chair, I would move, I would move to conduct the first reading of ordinance 21-06 by title only. You've opened the public hearing. You've taken testimony, right? We want to continue the hearing to January 26th. Is that the motion you want to have, council?
I think we just need to have something to conduct the first reading. Is that?
Yes.
Okay, move to conduct the first reading then. Thank you.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to move and seconded that the board conduct the first reading of ordinance number 21-06 by title only. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. County Council, may we have the first reading by title only?
An ordinance adopting Clatsop County Code Section 7.04 to require solid waste collectors to obtain a franchise.
Thank you, County Council. And thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dean. Appreciate your work on this. Next public hearing is ordinance number 21-07, modifying commissioner district boundaries, page 159.
Thank you, Chair Quayle, members of the board. Per the Clatsop County Charter, county staff and your board and some critical partners in Portland State University and Oregon Kitchen Table have been working through that 120-day process to make recommendations to your board as to new boundaries going forward. Staff and our partners have conducted a comprehensive public engagement process, which included 5 virtual public forums, an online survey in both English and Spanish, and then further outreach to Spanish speakers at a number of different public events. In total, 300 folks participated in the outreach, where they provided comments to a number of questions that would influence decisions that both staff would be making and your board would be making in terms of the boundaries. Those revised boundaries, was presented to your board on December 8th during a work session. At this point, we have an ordinance in front of your board. We are asking that it be adopted as an emergency ordinance because we do want to comply with the 120-day period. And as you know, the delay in the release of the census has really compressed everything for us. And we would like to at least meet that date. Given the public engagement process that has taken place, we feel comfortable that the public has had the opportunity to really weigh in on these boundaries. After these boundaries are approved, obviously they will inform the May primary, and there is another agenda item during the business agenda that will deal with another nuance of the charter that's also been impacted by the delay in the release. So we're asking your board to adopt the emergency ordinance, and that includes the reference to the final map that was accepted by your board. And that is where we are this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. Our county clerk is here as well. Tracy, did you have anything to add?
Thank you, Commissioner. No, Dawn has covered it. Thank you.
Thank you, County Clerk. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
No, there are not.
Okay. Is there any discussion from the members of the commission? If we don't have any discussion or questions, then we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 21-07, modifying commissioner district boundaries and declaring an emergency ordinance.
Second.
Move to second to adopt, or excuse me, to approve ordinance 21-07, modifying commissioner district boundaries and declaring an emergency ordinance. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. County Council, we have the reading by title only.
Ordinance modifying commissioner district boundaries.
Thank you, County Council. That is all of the public hearings that we have this evening. Now we'll move on to the business agenda. First item on the business agenda is the dissolving the Arts Council, dissolution of the Arts Council on page 166. And I'll turn it over to our county manager.
Oh, go ahead, Don.
No, thank you, Chair Quayle. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Teresa, who is the liaison to the Arts Council.
Okay, thank you, Teresa.
Yes, we spoke about this, I believe it was in November at a work session. The Arts Council of Clatsop County, they have applied for their nonprofit status and been approved, and they have everything in order. They've opened a bank account, and so they are ready to take off and do their own thing, and hopefully get to apply for more grants and I think they're going to be just as active as ever. So I think it's a good move, and yeah, the county will still be here to support them.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I would just like to comment that that I think this is an exemplary well, this is a great example of the commission's ability to convene groups of people to accomplish certain objectives. This was something that was that came after several years ago, and we sat with them. We've given them financial support. We've given them a place to meet. We've given them Teresa's terrific assistance. And now they're ready to spread their wings and go off and be on their own. And one of the things that this will allow them to do is to secure grants that as a county agency, they might not have been able to secure. So I think this is a really cool way to make something happen in the community in a way that doesn't cost the county a huge amount of money, but puts in place a partner for us in accomplishing our objectives, to support and proclaim it as good with the cultural arts in our county. So I just like to say kind of hurrah. It's always cool when we can bring something full circle. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. I think that's a great point. Absolutely. Do we have a motion? We need a motion to dissolve the Clatsop County Arts Council.
I move to dissolve the Clatsop County Arts Council and wish them good luck in the future.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to dissolve the Clatsop County Arts Council. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is the appeal of hearings officer decision, Brotherton McConaughey CUP. It's on page 170. And I will turn it over to Ian Sisson.
Thank you, Chair Quila, members of the board. This is Ian Sisson, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. And I will give you a brief recap. I know you've gotten a presentation from me on this before, but just a little refresher. And I also wanted to note that we have Hillary Foote from DLCD with us today. She's the farm forest specialist, and she'll be here to answer any questions your board has. Hillary has a very wide breadth and depth of knowledge about all things farm forest related as far as state policy goes. So thank you, Hillary, for taking the time to be here. So again, this is an appeal of a hearings officer's decision for a denial of a conditional use permit. Per section 2.245 of the Land and Water Development and Use Ordinance, the board's scope this evening is to decide how to handle that appeal, and that would be whether to uphold the hearings officer's decision or to re-review the case. As a note, if the board does decide to re-review the case all or in part, the board must decide what the parameters for that review will be, and it likely would require a special meeting. So the options that are set forth in the code are: 1, to deny the review; 2, to review the existing record without accepting any new information; 3, to hold a limited review, again setting the parameters for that review tonight if that's what you decide to do; or 4, to hold a brand new hearing or a de novo hearing. Again, the subject property is 4 acres in size, located at the corner of Old Highway 30 and Waterhouse Road in Napa. The applicants have requested to build a new single-family home. This in the EFU zone requires a type 2 conditional use review. The path that the applicants have taken or requested is called a lot of record dwelling, which is subject to the standards in section 3.512 of the standards document, which implements OAR 660-033130 subsection 3. The property is identified as high value farmland per the NRCS web soil survey mapping and our definition of high value farmland. Because the property is high value farmland, the applicant must demonstrate that the property cannot practicably be managed for farm use by itself or in conjunction with other land due to extraordinary circumstances inherent in the land or its physical setting that do not apply generally to other land in the vicinity. So the applicants have described characteristics that would make farming the property difficult, but they did indicate there were 2 or more acres of the property that could be put to farm use. That said, they described the area as something that would be too small to support a commercial scale agricultural enterprise. Based on the review of the relevant case law, staff found that to meet the impracticability standard, it would need to be demonstrated that the property is not capable of generating at least $650 in gross annual revenue from farming. Staff determined that there were various possible uses of the property that could be supported, which would generate over $650. And therefore, staff concluded that the property could practicably be managed for farming. And the applicant didn't provide substantial evidence to the contrary, so the application could not be approved. The applicants, again, appealed the initial denial, and a de novo hearing was held before the hearings officer, which concurred with the staff findings and upheld the decision to deny. The applicants have now appealed the hearings officer's decision to your board. The grounds for that appeal are that extraordinary circumstances exist that preclude the subject property from being put to farm use without undue hardship. The property owners have had difficulty restocking the site with merchantable timber after harvest in 2013. The property has been owned by the same family since the 1950s, and the owners have had hopes to eventually develop the property with a home site. And the appellants believe the criteria have been met and that the subject property is generally unsuitable for commercial farm use by itself or in conjunction with other land. Quick review of the materials submitted with the latest appeal. They did not demonstrate how or why the property is not capable of generating at least $650, which was a key staff finding leading to the denial. They do not contest the applicability of the case law that was cited by staff, which is where that $650 figure came from. And they don't substantially augment the arguments or the evidence that was provided with the original application or during the first appeal. So based on the lack of substantive new information that's associated with this appeal, the staff position is that the matter does not warrant further hearing, and we recommend that the board summarily affirm the October 12 hearings officer's decision and deny the appeal. Again, your scope of review this evening and what we need from you is to decide what you would like to do with this appeal. And again, there are 4 options. You could deny the review as recommended by staff. You could hold a review on the current information in the record without accepting any new information. You could hold a limited review on 1 or more particular items, or you could hold a completely new de novo hearing. That is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Any questions for our senior planner, Sisson? And then Teresa, I know we had some individuals that wanted to speak on this topic.
Yes, Catherine Rasinovich.
Catherine?
Yes, I'm here.
If you wanted to go ahead and provide some comments.
Well, yes, we do. And we just ask that we have the opportunity to have this conditional use permit re-reviewed and considered by the commissioners. And we have contested the case law that was presented by the county. That's not a correct information. We refute some of the information that the county is presenting tonight, and they should not be bringing any specialists in without us having notice to that situation. That should be presented when we're able to have this permit process re-reviewed by the commissioners. We were never notified that there would be any specialists available to question or speak with tonight. And I don't think that's appropriate. And I don't think there should be any opinions determined tonight until we can actually re-review this file and present the information that contests what the county has provided to you, the planning department.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Joy Brotherton.
Joy?
She's here.
Okay, how about Janice McConaughey?
Janice and Joy did present a written statement. Janice is deaf and has an interpreter, and I think they're having trouble with their computer. They're texting me right now. But they're asking the same thing, that we have the opportunity to review this permit with the county. And again, they have paid their fee to have the commissioners review this case file and everything that we have submitted in addition, and a response to what the county has submitted today and submitted upon appeal at the last meeting. Hold on, Joy is calling me, just a second. Hello? I did. Yeah, I did. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Okay, they just wanted me to reiterate that Janice is deaf, so she can't speak. They submitted their written statement to the commissioners, as I did as well, and we just ask that we have the opportunity to refute the information that the county is providing, and we contest that what has been presented is not entirely accurate or represents what we have contended with this property.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
That's all the people who've signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Do we have any comments, questions for our senior planner, Commissioner Banks?
Yeah, so I would like to request from the board that we formally review the threshold farming qualifications of $650 for this location. After personally visiting the site, discussing the situation with the landowner, and conversations with County Manager and Director Hendrickson, I feel the need to honor that $3,000 fee that the landowner paid in order for this singular issue to be brought before us. So I personally would request further elaboration and consideration from the board.
So what you would be requesting is option 3, right? Limit the review to such issues as, and you were talking about the $650 farming threshold. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think Commissioner Toyoka, you were first, and then Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Quayla. I just had a question. I've tried to read through all the different ordinances. I can't find anything else that's talked, I've seen the 650 of gross income. Is there anything anywhere about net or expenses, in reality, even if it's on that high side of 7,000 of gross income, it might cost $10,000 to generate that. So is there anything in any statute or anything that has a formula that could come into the play here? I just couldn't find it on my own, so I'm just asking if there's any other background information.
Commissioner Toyoka, thanks for your question. The criteria that apply to this particular application are limited, and none of those criteria reflect the net income. Only only the gross income was evaluated, and that actually was based on case law, not a particular criterion that we have in our code, but a case called Friends of Lynn County versus Lynn County. That's where that number came from, and it was just gross income, not net.
May I make one statement about that? That case law was incorrectly quoted in the case law. That case law, they're not using that information correctly in this permit process.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. I think we'll limit the rest of the questions to the commission. Commissioner Thompson.
Well, and that was my question. To Commissioner Bang's point, I know that you're interested in what you think is a fair process and want to maintain the law. The $650, is that something that we have decided in Clatsop County so that we have the authority to review that, or does that come from some other legal standing, legal structure in some way? Can you help me understand that, Planner Sisson?
Sure. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Thompson. So the case law that was cited referenced $650. In that case law, LUBA referenced $650 as the amount the legislature has determined demonstrates that a property could be practicably farmed, because it's the amount of money that would be necessary for a property that's not in the EFU zone to qualify for a special assessment. So, and this, again, this is a figure that's based on the size of the property. So again, the subject property is 4 acres in size. And so the state statutes set out an income requirement for properties that are 6 acres or smaller of $650, again, a gross annual income. And that figure is to qualify for a special assessment based on farm use. And so what LUBA determined was that that number is the best indicator of the practicability of farm use for a property of that size.
So follow-up question, if I may. It's LUBA and state law. Did the hearings officer consider this and rule on it already? Because my understanding was, when we heard this before, that the hearings officer had already reviewed all of these questions and rendered a decision, and we as commissioners are asked whether we want to accept the hearings officer's decision, which has already ruled on all of these issues. I thought I understood. Am I accurate in that?
So in the initial appeal to the hearings officer, the case law that I'm referencing now and the $650 figure was set forth in the staff findings, and the hearings officer adopted the staff findings and upheld the appeal. So effectively, yes, the hearings officer agreed with those findings.
Thank you, Planner Sisson. Commissioner Bangs and then Commissioner Toy.
So I'm just wanting to talk this out a little bit. I think when we're discussing this, was slope, riparian zones, site limitations, setbacks, flood zone, and all of those other limitations taken into account in the thought process of developing the 650, whether or not it met that $650 threshold?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Bangs. Yes, those items were raised by the applicants as barriers to farming the property that would make farming the property more difficult. I just want to note that there is a very narrow strip that's mapped as a flood hazard area along Big Creek. It doesn't take up much area of the property. And excuse me, I did conduct a site visit myself also, and noticed the slope adjacent to the road. There was written testimony provided by the applicants that 2 acres, so in making the argument that the property would be difficult to farm, the applicants specifically stated that there were 2+ acres of the property that could possibly be farmed. And so the determination that that area could be used to generate $650 was based on some of the possible crops that could be grown in the area, and within an area of about 2 acres or more. And so it was a combination of information that was provided by the applicant as well as research that was done on farming in the area.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senior Planner Sisson? Commissioner Toyoka.
Yes, just one follow-up question. Planner Sisson, I appreciate your thoroughness on all this, and I apologize for background questions. So the $650 and the LUBA, the case law that we're citing, it's over 20 years ago. Have there been any updates, amendments to the ORS about the 650? Because, how old is that statute? And, obviously 20 some years ago, over 20 years ago, $650 was a lot different than today.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Toyoka. I believe, and Hillary Foote could confirm this probably, but I believe that $650 is still the same. I did look that up in the ORS and confirmed myself that it's the same. And I don't believe that there has been any new case law that would have changed LUBA's interpretation of what demonstrates practicable farm use that would override the case law that was cited in this report.
So I think our options obviously would be either to uphold the hearings officer position, deny the request. I've heard a lot of questions about the $650 threshold for farming. So County Council, if we did decide just to review the farming threshold, the $650, and maybe drill down on that item alone, or that issue alone, would we be in conflict with any, is that within our purview? Are we in conflict with any state law doing that?
Yes, Chair, thank you for the question. Yes, that would be within your purview. You could have a limited review where you could take in new testimony on that specific issue. And that is definitely one of your choices that's in front of the board tonight.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. What I'm struggling with is we held this over in order for there to be some reasonable coming to a conclusion, agreement of some kind between the staff and the property owner. And I'm not able to see that has happened. That's number one. Number two, if we have inflation and it hasn't been adjusted for inflation from 650, that would only raise the standard. And I don't see how that helps the applicant at all. So I'm at a loss to see, the only thing I'm willing to do is to affirm the October 12th, 2021 decision of the hearings officer, because I can't see that it helps anybody to continue this agonizing process. We can say, let's do it better next time. We can ask the property owner to take, but this has carried on in my mind long enough. So, Mr. Chair, I would move that the Board of Commissioners summarily affirm the October 12th, 2021 decision of the Clatsop County Hearings Officer and deny the appeal request.
I would second that motion.
Okay, moved and seconded to deny review and affirm the appeal of, or excuse me, affirm the decision of the hearings officer. Any further discussion? Commissioner Banks.
I personally would like to be able to harvest a little bit more testimony from the landowner, allowing them to have further conversation regarding this property.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Commissioner Thompson?
I understand the desire to give whatever support is possible to the landowner. I think this process really needs to come to an end, and the landowner needs to try a different process for this to go forward effectively. I think we're getting wrapped around the axle in terms of what we can do legally at a reasonable cost to follow the law and set reasonable precedents. Like you, I want to see this resolved in a way that's as agreeable as possible to everyone concerned. And I think that's the reason I made the motion, because I want to end this process so we can do something else if we choose to. Because this, in my mind, this one isn't working well, and continuing it won't allow it to get any better. It will just continue us down the rabbit hole. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, and sorry, Catherine, we're not going to have any other discussion right now, but I've struggled with this one as well, because I see that we are kind of bound by state law in this. And if we probe the $650, which I was prepared to do, to kind of have a review strictly on this farm threshold, I do feel that that's only going to be denied. I mean, I just don't see how that's going to be a successful review. I just in discussing it and talking amongst ourselves, it just seems like that's just going to end us back where we started. So I think that it might be in the best interest to actually uphold the hearings officer.
You really need to make a statement if you're going to make a decision.
Catherine, I'm sorry, we have actually had discussion, and this isn't a public hearing. I have to apologize for that. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Nay. Okay. Teresa, can we have a roll call vote?
Sure. Chair Quila?
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Toyoka?
By the laws submitted, aye, but.
Commissioner Webb? I'm sorry, Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Banks?
Nay.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Senior Planner Sisson. Next item is the waiving Commissioner District Boundary Adoption 6-month provision, page 174.
Quayla, members of the board, this is the second part of the redistricting process for this evening. This resolution and order basically acknowledges that there is a provision of the charter that, given the delay in the census, that the county will not be able to meet, and we just want your board to acknowledge that portion of the charter and also get reassurance from county staff, including the county clerk, that by waiving such, it will not impact the election in May. So the county charter basically requires 6 months that the adoption of the new boundaries happens 6 months prior to the next countywide election. Adopting the new district map this evening will not give us 6 months to the May primary, but we do believe that there's plenty of time for us to implement those boundary changes, and staff has been working on that. We've been blessed to have amazing GIS staff, A&T assessment and taxation staff, county clerk staff, county council, county manager's office staff working on this. And so we believe that there is cause for the board to waive this charter provision given the delay, and we are confident we can ably implement these changes prior to the May election. So we're asking you to adopt the resolution in order to do such. Thank you.
Any questions for county manager on this? Okay, if not, we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt a resolution and order waiving the county charter requirement of redistricting changes at least 6 months before the next countywide election.
I second that motion.
Okay, moved and seconded to adopt a resolution and order waiving the county charter changes at least 6 months before the next countywide election. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Motion carries. And that appears to be the last item on our agenda. Do we have one more? County manager.
Chair Aquila, members of the board, we have one more item, which will be the adoption of the emergency order. Tiffany Brown is joining us, and she will give a brief staff report.
Good evening, Commissioner Aquila, commissioners. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, as you're aware, by this time, we had significant flooding last week. It began on the 3rd of January and ramped up. And by the 6th, we had some serious flooding throughout the county. I have Ted McLean and Terry Hendricks on the phone on the call tonight in case you have any specific questions about the operations that I'm not able to answer. We began monitoring last week, and County Works was really leaning into the incident. And when the water receded on Friday, Ted let me know that he thought that we had reached our threshold amount for damages, which allows us to declare an emergency in the county. I sent you an attachment today showing that that amount for Clatsop County is $144,000. We're not done with our assessments yet, but that was enough to get the process started. On Friday, we developed a survey for the cities, the special districts, to start polling the other jurisdictions and see what kind of damage they may have sustained. Other departments that were involved in that response were the fairgrounds. They opened up the facilities for large animals. We coordinated information about sandbagging, and we've made plans to improve that resource for the citizens moving forward. And I think that's what I was going to say about the operations. We sent out the survey on Monday morning. We haven't heard back from everyone. We've heard from a water district, a sanitation district, 2 of the cities, and we know a couple others are reporting. We should have a damage assessment by the end of the week. This declaration tonight is to notify the state that we are declaring a state of emergency to seek resources in the recovery portion of this event. That's what I have for now, unless you have questions.
Any questions for our emergency manager, Commissioner Toyoka?
One quick question. Harkening to the old days, maybe Ted McLean can help answer this one. As I travel in Clatsop Plains area, I get a lot of questions about, is there any mitigation on the beaver dams in this area that are causing a lot of the flooding? You know, the numbers are, I don't have any statistics from ODF&W, but you know, the numbers are up on the beavers, and there's a lot of dam activity that's causing significant flooding. Is there any mitigation program to help with this flooding?
This is Ted McLean. Not that I'm aware of. There isn't any mitigation for that. There is a lot of hold up with the lakes because of beaver damage, all the way up to McCormick Gardens. But there hasn't been any efforts to remove the beavers, or it's just another can of worms when you head that direction.
Any other, Commissioner Thompson?
Well, that's Mother Nature's levee system, right? So do we need to write another letter to ODF and W? I mean, it's wildlife, it's creating damage. Maybe we don't want to think about this at quarter to 8 at night, but maybe that goes in our bucket list, because if this is an ongoing problem, something we should pay attention to. Having said all that, I'm ready to make a motion. Are you ready to have it, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move that we approve the resolution in order to declare an emergency related to flooding that occurred January 3rd through 6th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded to declare an emergency. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Emergency Manager. Thank you, Ted, Terry. Thank you for all your hard work. Do we have any items for the good of the order? Okay, Commissioner Webb?
Well, I'd just like to say that I probably received as many constituent phone calls in the last 2 weeks as I have in the last 3 years. And especially because a very large part of my district is susceptible. And I just can't say enough about how responsive our staff has been. I thought the getting onto the website was continually being updated. I finally got to the point I could say to people, just go to the website and you'll have it all. It's all there. The responses were terrific. The comments I got from people about talking to and watching our staff and our subcontractors respond so quickly and so ambitiously to the immediate problems. I just would like to say congratulations to all of you from the county manager down for this terrific response. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Much agreed. Any other comments for the good of the order? If not, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Good rest of your evening.